Major funding for battling opioids has been provided by...
It doesn't take long to become addicted to opioids. 13 Pennsylvanians die from them every day. Geisinger is committed to ending opioid addiction with both prevention and treatment. In the last 3 years, we've reduced the amount of opioids we prescribe by 50%, and we've opened 4 medication-assisted treatment centers across the state to help patients recover from addiction. Learn more at geisinger.org/hadenough.
Additional support has been provided by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and viewers like you. Thank you.
For almost 3 decades, the number of overdose deaths have continued to increase throughout the United States. In 2018, the U.S. experienced a slight decrease, marking the first decline since 1990. Deaths were down, but the numbers are still incredibly high. In Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth has the 3rd highest rate of overdose deaths in the United States. Hello, I'm Paula Giangiacomo. Tonight, Pennsylvania Public Media presents our 3rd collaborative effort to help bring awareness to the opioid epidemic. Tonight's program will focus on current and new treatments. After this short message, we'll meet our panel and explain what resources are available by calling 1-800-662-HELP.
Is someone you love abusing opioid medications? It may not be easy to tell, especially in the early stages of addiction. Perhaps you've noticed changes in your loved one's moods or behavior. People who are addicted to opioids may still hold down jobs and other responsibilities, maintaining the appearance of stability at work and home. Recovery starts with a call. Call 1-800-662-HELP or visit battlingopioids.org.
Welcome back to Battling Opioids, a project of Pennsylvania Media. Our first guest is Deputy Secretary Ellen DiDomenico, who is coming to us from the WITF studios in Harrisburg. Deputy Secretary DiDomenico is going to tell us more about what resources are available through the PA Help Hotline. First of all, thank you for joining us. Let's talk about the hotline and how does it work?
It's a pleasure to be here. The hotline is an opportunity for all of Pennsylvanians to be able to access treatment from an efficient and easy manner. And so what folks can do with the hotline is they call the 1-800-662-HELP number, and that is the first step in terms of accessing both information and resources to get them to the right kinds of treatment at the right point in their lives.
Again, that number is 1-800-662-HELP. Secretary, when calling the hotline, is the information the caller provides confidential?
The information is absolutely confidential. In fact, folks don't need to provide a name if they're uncomfortable doing so, because the whole point of the line is to make people feel comfortable in terms of accessing resources. And so when they first call, they may feel that they don't want to divulge their identity, but as they are in conversation with someone from the hotline, they may become more confident that this is the right step for them to take and use that opportunity to share information so that they can be given a warm transfer to the right folks to be able to help them begin to access that treatment resource that they need.
And Secretary, do you need health insurance to access this hotline?
So the hotline itself is actually the resource that can help individuals either navigate their insurance or connect them to resources such as insurance, Pennsylvania's Medicaid program, or county funding for treatment, should that be something that the individual needs. So regardless of the financial circumstances of the individual, regardless of their insurance or lack thereof, they are really able to use this as the first step to move down that journey towards recovery by getting the information they need at that point in time.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary DiDomenico. We appreciate you joining us. As mentioned earlier, tonight's program will focus on current and new treatments. Now, let's meet our panel. Senator Gene Yaw represents the 23rd Senatorial District and serves on a number of boards and commissions. He is the chairman of the Center for Rural Pennsylvania. Raphael Bereshansky is the Deputy Secretary for Health Preparedness and Community Protection at the Pennsylvania Department of Health. Senator Yaw, you've been instrumental in getting the PDMP passed as law, prescription drug monitoring program, and now you're working on something else to get veterinarians engaged in reporting prescription use. Is that correct?
That is correct. One of the things that we've learned through the many hearings we've had with the Center for Rural Pennsylvania is that people use veterinarians as a source for opioids. And unfortunately, there are some incidents that we've heard about where people actually injure their animals in order to qualify for drugs. That's one. The other, which I was contacted by the Philadelphia Department of Health, that the departments of health in the various counties can't access the PDMP, and they think that that's really an important way to monitor who is really prescribing drugs.
But we're still not done with this fight. This fight is continuing, correct?
That's a great point. From 2017 to 2018, we did record an 18% drop in overdose deaths. And I think that it's important to reflect on how the collective efforts of various entities, state agencies, local entities, legislators who are exceptionally informed, like Senator Yaw, have been to making that 18% what it is. But I think the fight is far from over. And I think that anytime we reflect back, we have to figure out what's working, what's not working, and how to re-energize our overall efforts to make sure that whatever's working works even better. So I think this 18%, we're beginning to bend the curve, but we're far from mission accomplished.
Vivitrol is a once-a-month injection that is helping those with opioid addiction to move beyond cravings to sustained recovery. Although Vivitrol is proving to be an effective alternative to methadone and Suboxone treatments, it's not yet widely available. In this story, let's learn more about a new program that takes Vivitrol to Pennsylvania's rural communities.
I figured I would have died at 25. I didn't think I would make it to my 20s, let alone, you know, I'm 28 now, so I didn't think I would ever make it this far. I'd probably either be in prison or I'd be dead. My name is Stuart Masula. I am the logistics manager of Positive Recovery Solutions. My main job is to transport our mobile unit in Western Pennsylvania. I'll go down, pick up my trailer, and then we take it to whatever location it may be. I mean, we've parked in parking lots in the middle of cornfields. So patients can receive Vivitrol in our Vivitrol program.
Vivitrol is a non-narcotic, non-controlled, once-monthly injection that the patient receives. It blocks them from being able to successfully use their drug of choice of opiates or alcohol, and it lasts for 36 days.
Okay, under your tongue.
Vivitrol, it calms the mind. It allows you to focus on recovery because you don't have that craving breathing down your neck. And they have that sense of well-being because they know even if they try to use, it's not going to be successful. So what's the point? Vivitrol is not for the patient who is not done using. If you feel like you have another run in you, if you feel like you just have a situation going on where you need to stop for a little bit, but you know you're going to go back to active use, don't get the shot.
Okay, I'm going to go down a list. Tell me if you've used alcohol.
Yes.
Marijuana.
Yes.
Heroin.
Yes.
Pain pills.
Yes.
Cocaine.
Yes.
Suboxone.
Yes.
Methadone.
Yes.
We have a mobile Vivitrol unit that goes across 28 counties in Pennsylvania, 17 in Ohio.
So heroin was your drug of choice?
Yes.
So we decided to create this mobile unit so that we can take this service to them.
And have you ever been incarcerated?
Yes.
How many times? Just
10.
Okay.
They're going to fill out new patient paperwork with consents. We urine drug screen.
Well, it's easier for me to, instead of going to a hospital and waiting at an emergency room or a doctor's office, it's a lot more convenient.
This is extremely important to me. I celebrated 13 years clean in May of this year. For me, it was when I went into the ER, there was a nurse that was so compassionate and so kind to me that I thought, I'm gonna be that one day for somebody.
So you're aware of the lump and the bomb and all of that, correct?
Yeah.
to be able to help almost 600 patients a month right now means the world, because that's 600 patients that in the next, 28 days aren't going to die of an opiate overdose or an alcohol toxicity.
I used drugs to escape the pain that I was feeling because of the things I did. I mean, I did the worst of the worst, and I've been to prison. I've done a lot of time in county jails. I've been to 4 or 5 rehabs just because I couldn't stop. Vivitrol turned off the voice inside my head that told me that I had to get high. It stopped the cravings, it stopped my obsessive thoughts about using, and it gave me a chance.
What? You wanna go play?
I've seen it help
Go show mama.
so many people, give so many people the chance to start working in recovery, to start really building a foundation. If you would have told me, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that I'd be responsible for a life, like I wasn't responsible for my own life, you know what I mean, let alone a child's.
Throw it.
Now I see myself as a father, someone who's giving back, and an actual productive member of today's society. If not for Vivitrol, I wouldn't have any, my life would not exist as it is today, that's for sure. We're gonna be available to as many people as possible and get as many people injections as we can, because we all know it works. I get to see people basically come from the lowest they've been in their life, and I get to see them succeed. It's pretty cool to see people, do extremely well.
Have a hug.
That's very nice.
Recovery starts with a call. Call 1-800-662-HELP or visit battlingopioids.org.
Now joining us via Skype is Stu Masula, Logistics Manager of Positive Recovery Solutions based in the Pittsburgh area, the person who you just saw in that video. Stu, first of all, congratulations on your recovery and everything you're doing with the mobile unit. We just have some questions for you, and thank you for joining us. How do people find out about the schedule and the location of the mobile unit?
We have an office based in Washington, Pennsylvania, and we work with a lot of drug and alcohol entities, whether it be treatment facilities or drug and alcohol coalitions. And what we do is, since we have those connections with those people, they refer patients to us. We are in many places in Pennsylvania, and we have a team in our office that is able to answer the phones and get those patients scheduled out to whatever location that they are currently residing in or they're able to make it to. So we're able to see quite a few people from quite a different areas around Pennsylvania.
So can people Google this mobile unit and find out more information?
Oh yeah, if you punch in, if you put in Positive Recovery Solutions, we have our own website. We have all sorts of social media, stuff like that. And there's also, on the makers of Vivitrol Alkermes, there's actually a provider finder through their website. And if you just punch in your zip code, it will actually tell you who your closest provider is. And whether it be us or be another injection provider, that will be able to give you who's there and who's where you're at.
And how many zip codes do you actually travel to? Is this just a Western Pennsylvania thing, or do you travel throughout the state?
We go all over the place. We're, I believe, in around 28 counties in Pennsylvania. So we go from everywhere, from Western Pennsylvania all the way out to Central PA. We're starting in the Philadelphia area. So we're all over Pennsylvania. We have offices in Ohio, and we're currently starting an office in Kentucky also. And
what's the reaction been from people that you're treating? Or do they think it's a positive thing?
Anybody that I've ever seen actually get the injection, at first they're completely blown away by how well it works. And I mean, I've never heard of anybody, let alone the patients that we see, say that Vivitrol doesn't work. Everybody is very, very happy with the results of it, and they know how successful it is.
Well, you're a prime example. Thank you again for being with us and for shedding light on this mobile unit. We appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Let's rejoin our panel, Senator Gene Yaw and Deputy Secretary Raphael Bereshansky. Secretary Bereshansky, now the state is involved in something like this, medication-assisted treatment?
We are, but the first thing I want to do is congratulate Stu on his recovery. So Stu, from the Department of Health and from all of us at the Opioid Command Center, I want to say congratulations and keep up the great work. Secondarily, of no less importance, I also want to invite you to come to the Opioid Command Center that we have that involves 17 state-level agencies every Monday morning. Please get in touch with me. I would love to bring you there and have all of those agencies hear about your success with your program. Now back to your answer, and I apologize for that.
Oh, that's okay. That was great.
In regard to medication-assisted treatment, every Monday, one of the agencies that's involved with our coordinated effort is our Department of Corrections. And our Department of Corrections has an intense medication-assisted treatment program for their entire population, and they take it extremely seriously. Their higher level leadership, including Secretary Wetzel, is dedicated to making sure that those with substance use disorder who are behind bars are not neglected and who are paid close attention to. And from what I believe, there are 3 different types of medication-assisted treatment that they attempt to give the people who that find themselves being wards of the state. Now, I will also let you know that there's also a naloxone program that the Department of Corrections is involved in that we hear about all the time, where anybody who comes into the correctional facilities with a substance use issue, when they leave, they don't get a prescription for naloxone, they get naloxone. And the last of these huge initiatives that our Department of Corrections is involved in is the body scanner initiative. So this came out when the governor first declared opioids a disaster back in January 2018, where there was a pilot program for body scanners, and I believe it was at the Warnersville Correctional Facility. That's where the first one was. They've been so effective that every state correctional facility currently has a body scanner like this. Some even have 2. And
what do they do?
They pick up everything. So when you walk through, and I do mean everything.
So if you're carrying a substance,
whether it's a weapon or a substance.
Okay.
And from what I've been told by my Department of Correction peers, that the biggest issue when they first got it was that all of the people really realized immediately what was going on, and they would just dump whatever they had right outside of their cars or in a yard nearby. So the biggest issue was finding all of that contraband near the prison, but it wasn't getting into the prison. And from what I understand, and understand this is anecdotal, the overdose rate in a large majority of our state correctional facilities has gone down tremendously, and some are at 0. So these are successes from our Department of Corrections, and one of the biggest is their medication-assisted treatment program.
Now, are these initiatives just within the Department of Corrections?
So they're looking at those from the State Department of Corrections, but right now they're working with the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, or PCCD, to expand those to county corrections as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Senator Yaw, you're a big proponent of medication-assisted treatment.
Absolutely. I think that it's probably underutilized, and we have to get over the stigma that medication-assisted treatment is just substituting one drug for another, and I don't think that that's the case at all. If we can use any kind of a drug that helps a person become a productive member of society, where they can have a family, hold a job, or whatever, then I think that is something that's worthwhile that we look at.
And it's also been documented that medication-assisted treatment combined with therapy is actually more successful than just medication-assisted treatment alone, correct?
You make a very good point. Therapy, even the Vivitrol programs, which are great, but Vivitrol, and I guess one of the examples, it's like stretching out a rubber band. If you let go of it, it's going to go back to its original shape. And the purpose of Vivitrol is to hopefully during that period of time that the person can change their habits or their friends or lifestyle or whatever. It's medication-assisted treatment. It's not medication-end treatment here. So all these programs need to work together, and I think that we've been we're getting there. We're starting to see some success.
That what the command center does is getting these resources and initiatives to work together in the state?
100%. That is literally the reason why Governor Wolf put together these state agencies, and everyone has a little piece of the pie, but much like what Senator Yaw said before, it's every single one of those small pieces that's going to wind up into our bigger victories.
Sure.
And so each one of the state agencies, what they bring to the table is that coordination, that communication. And every Monday we hear about the successes, but we also hear about what we need to do even more.
To improve.
Exactly.
And again, even though there's been a drop in overdose deaths, there's a reason why the governor signed another disaster declaration.
Correct.
For the opioid crisis.
You are correct.
And that's every 3 months?
That is, as per state law, it has to be, the disaster declarations have to be signed every 90 days. And the governor's shown a true dedication to our opioid crisis in signing and re-signing.
And what determines whether he signs another declaration?
Well, I wish I had that answer for you.
The severity of the crisis?
I think that you brought up a very interesting statistic in the beginning, that we're one of the hardest hit states. And I don't think that gets by Governor Wolf. He recognizes how hard the state has been hit. And at the same time, even though we've made some progress, we have more to go.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that we were losing 15 people a day to drug overdose. So the reduction, we're now only losing 12 people a day. So when you look at it in real terms, I mean, that's still what it works out to be 4,400 people per year are dying of a drug overdose in Pennsylvania. And that's a lot of people.
Do you think with the death of Ethel Kennedy's granddaughter, 22 years old, died of a drug overdose recently, they're not saying, exactly what caused it, but do you think that will help bring awareness to the severity of this crisis? Unfortunately, having a celebrity name attached to it, do you think that will help bring awareness?
It may help. I'm not sure that it really is going to have a large effect. I mean, I hate to say this, but the Kennedy family has had so many tragedies. It's like, well, I know the one article I read, it was like, okay, this is just one more in the history of this family.
Well, it just goes to show that this crisis affects everyone, not just famous people, but not just wealthy people, but poor people in every aspect of society.
That's a great point, and that's the way we're looking at it from the state perspective. Is it doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter what you look like. What matters is that this is an issue. This is our issue. It's going to impact you. It's going to impact your neighbors. It's going to impact your family. We're going to do what we can to lessen that impact.
It doesn't affect your status, income, or anything.
Right, exactly.
It is totally without regard to any of those factors.
Very good point. Well, we hear a lot about the staggering number of people who lose their battle with opioids on a daily basis. We hear less about the number of people who enter recovery. In fact, some say peer support is what keeps those struggling with addiction in recovery. Let's find out more.
So I started shooting heroin around 13.
In 2001, I was introduced to OxyContin. By 2002, I was doing heroin.
I started taking pills, and before I knew it, I was addicted to them.
My first experience with drugs altogether was a little prescription from my doctor.
After a while, pills were just too expensive and too hard to come by, and then obviously heroin became the easier target for me to get.
As soon as I experienced heroin, there was no turning back.
That was my escape from the world.
I remember doing heroin and thinking, like, this is it. Like, I will never do anything else. This is all I want to ever do.
That was it. Everything consisted of getting that drug. Risky behavior, jail, a lot of incarcerations.
It affected everything. It affected my relationships with my family, my relationships with my peers.
It started being a way of life. It was a lifestyle that I had created for myself.
I've had 8 incarcerations.
I used while I was pregnant.
I was left all alone.
I mean, really just started living at like an animalistic level. Overdosing became part of it.
I counted 30. That was with Narcan. At one point, it was kind of like I wanted to die because it would have been easier on everybody, and including me.
My name is Matt, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. And what that means is I haven't used a drink or a drug since November 9th, 2009.
I'm Alex. I've been in long-term recovery since September 9th, 2016.
August 11, 2016.
January 19, 2010.
September 3rd, 2004.
November 4th, 2013.
January 11th, 2014.
April 30th, 2017. I started listening to people that were real about their stories and raw about their experience. And I met a gentleman named Chris, who I kind of listened to what he did and watched the way he acted.
I work at a treatment center, and like I see people from the recovering community come in on a daily basis and like sit down with somebody and they have that truth discussion, right? And for the first time, that other person sees that somebody else understands exactly what they're talking about. And as soon as they see that, something clicks, and then recovery begins, man. So when I met Dan, we just kind of sat down and we discussed the truth.
Dan had reached out to me after I got clean and I was out of rehab and said, hey, look, I'm starting this thing. I'm doing this 100%. I'd like you to help out.
I met this guy, Cecil, and I mean, literally, this guy would come and pick me up every day from treatment at 5 o'clock, and he introduced me to recovery, showed me what it was about, introduced me to people that I'm still friends with today, and really just showed me that there was a life beyond getting high.
You know, he says that I have a role in his recovery, but he has a role in my recovery as well. And I told him, I said, you know what? If I can do it, you can do it. And we formed a relationship at that point.
Matt coming in and sitting down with me and just, we would listen to music and just talk. For the first time, somebody that understood my pathway was there. He showed me what it was like to be there for somebody else. Okay, I'm done work at this time, I'm gonna pick you up and I'm gonna take you here.
There are some people whose spirits we just connect to.
I think the recovery community is booming.
I think the biggest thing for me is that I finally found a place that I feel a part of something.
I think the best way I've ever heard it described, it's like a shipwreck, right? Like everybody, on the shipwreck, you survive, right? And everybody goes their separate ways after, but you put them in a room together, it's like, oh my God, it's so good to see you. It's so good to see how you're doing. You know what I mean? That love is something that it's very rare to find in other places. And that's something that just exists with us.
The fact that there were people there when I came in to help me is what makes it important for me to stay. Because if we all got better and left, well, who would be there for the ones that are coming in next?
For somebody that's just coming in, we are imperative. We set the example. So that's why it's important when you're new coming in the doors is to sit down, close this, open these, and sit and listen and watch. And you'll find somebody in there that makes sense to you, and that's who you gravitate to.
In our process of struggling, there's been one or two people that were there for us, that loved us until we can learn how to love ourselves. And what we do is we try to pay it forward by doing the same thing. The more I do for others, the more it fills my spirit. And the more I stay connected, the more it keeps me grounded and keeps me in the recovery community.
Life is really a blessing, right? Because, after sitting and thinking about all the things that I've been through and all the different situations that I've been around, I shouldn't be here.
I feel like this is my purpose. I feel like I'm alive for a reason. I dodged many bullets, and I've been kept alive because of the fact that I'm meant to be here to inspire and create change for someone else. There is hope, and recovery is possible.
The big thing is that we do recover.
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 Recovery starts with a call. Call 1-800-662-HELP or visit battlingopioids.org.
Rejoining us now to continue our panel discussion, Senator Gene Yaw and Deputy Secretary Raphael Bereshansky. Senator, you introduced a bill to limit the quantity of opioid prescriptions. Is that correct?
We've already we've limited the prescriptions to 7 days for opioids coming out of emergency rooms. We a couple of years ago passed a bill that limited the prescriptions that can be given to minors and also required counseling for parents or guardians before a minor is given an opioid prescription. I think that they have been very successful, and we now have a bill which passed the Senate. Hopefully will go through the House and get the governor to sign it, that will limit prescriptions of opioids across the board to no more than 7 days. Now, there are exceptions for cancer, chronic pain, but what it does is that it will require a doctor to actually take a look at, does this person really need an opioid prescription of more than 7 days? And we think that will have a really pretty significant effect on the people who become addicted unintentionally. Those are the people that I'm really interested in.
And there's already been, what, a 40% reduction of opioids in hospitals?
Hospitals have told me that they've used 40% less of opioids, and I think that, I guess that tells you a couple of things. There are other drugs out there that are pretty successful, and maybe we were over-prescribing opioids.
Are you seeing successes with peer support, recovery, treatments, all the resources that are available?
So it's very interesting you said that, because two of the messages on the video really resonated with me. And one of them is that peer-to-peer support is so exceptionally important. So Senator Yaw and legislators who are informed make a critical difference in regard to legislation. And suits like myself, yes, I said it, I called myself out. Suits like myself can come with money, and we can come with naloxone, and we can come with other things. But at the end of the day, at the bottom of this equation, it's the peer-to-peer relationships that are going to take the individual patients and move them from where they are to where they need to be. So yes, we do play a critical role, and we really do. But at the same time, watching that video reinforced for me how important that peer-to-peer relationship is.
Well, you heard it firsthand.
Exactly, and I keep hearing it firsthand every week. At our weekly command center meeting, we call in special guests, and we ask them to talk about their experiences and initiatives that are working across the state, including last time we were here, I believe there was a young lady in the audience from one of the educational institutions. She came to the command center. She talked about that. We were looking at getting her funding or additional funding. So we look at those successes, those successful initiatives, and say, how can we better this? And the other message that really resonated with the video was recovery is possible. So again, like I said, I'm a suit, and I can come in and say the words recovery is possible. But when you hear it from somebody who's gone through recovery, the impact is so much greater. So I come with what I can, and Senator Yaw is bringing his game too. But at the end of the day, peer-to-peer and recovery is possible.
So you attending these panel discussions is actually positive for the state as well, I see.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Is there anything new or different that the state plans to embark upon to combat this crisis?
There are a couple of different initiatives that are being announced right now, and I believe at a governor's press conference last week, we heard about a kin care helpline that Department of Human Services is putting out there, because we're seeing more and more that parents who unfortunately die from overdose, we're seeing their grandparents having to take care of grandkids. Department of Human Services wanted to address that specifically. We've carved out some money from one of our federal grants to actually repay student loans for those who specialize in substance use disorder. So when it comes to things like that, like making sure we have enough educated professionals out there, making sure that we're focusing on grandparents who are taking care of grandkids. Of course, we're giving out naloxone, and that we've seen tremendous results from Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, PCCD's naloxone campaign. So all of these initiatives, they all kind of come together. And yes, we're not focusing on the 18%. We're focusing on what we need to do next.
I think education, I said this, if I had to pick one thing that we need to do, and it's education. It's education across the board with everything, all the things that you've talked about, what medication-assisted treatment is, what it isn't, what the programs, other rehab programs can do or what they can't do. But people need to be educated as to all these different factors. As both the Secretary and I have said, all these little things coming together, I think, are starting to make a difference.
And speaking of education, what age are we talking about?
Well, I think we have a perfect roadmap out there. We turned this ship around with smoking. And how did we do it? We started educating young kids in elementary school, and I think that we need to have a program similar to that to talk about drugs.
Is the governor or the state involved in education in schools?
The Department of Education is actually one of the state-level agencies that's at our weekly meetings, and they've seen successes in exactly these areas, bringing it to the elementary schools, then changing it up for the high schools, and making sure that there's enough education out there so that people know what's going on. And to Senator Yaw's exact point, we want to make sure people understand that was a great template to use, the smoking template. The Department of Education is an engaged partner on this, and we hear updates from them weekly.
Because even though we're talking about treatment in this particular program, doesn't it really start with prevention?
It does, and Secretary Levine, our Secretary of Health, always says it's about 3 pillars, prevention, rescue, and treatment. And so prevention is exactly what you just said, and we know what treatment is, and we look at rescue as naloxone and first responders and things like that. So each one of those pillars, you can't ignore how important each one is.
And at these command center meetings, do you sit down and scrutinize what's working, what's not working, what more can we do?
Not only do we handle it just like that, we also look at other agencies to support their sister agencies. So drug and alcohol programs is always in a place to support other agencies, as does Department of Health. Department of Corrections is keeping us up to date, and they're working with probation and parole and the Pennsylvania State Police. Department of Education also works in regard to workforce development as well as education. So it often becomes a very free-flowing but productive conversation.
And how do these agencies work together? Just by communicating?
They work. I am pleasantly surprised by how excellent the communication is. I will tell you that at every single one of the meetings, the governor's office also has representation. And this is an effort that we've been involved in now for a year and a half. And I will tell you that working on this initiative is probably one of my proudest moments in state government.
And this is a lot of information that our viewers may not even be aware of what's going on at the state level to help tackle this issue.
I think this is what there have been more things happen at the state level with legislation and cooperation and everything, and to address the opioid crisis in Pennsylvania than any other single thing that I can think of that I remember in recent history. And it's been a joint effort between the legislature, both houses in the legislature, as well as the governor's office, in order to get something done. And I think that we've done something.
Music and art therapy are alternative forms of treatment that are now being used in recovery. These treatments have been used to decrease symptoms of anxiety and repair damage caused by emotional trauma. New Roots Recovery Center provides hope and support to individuals with a substance use disorder.
My experience with my recovery, when you're in active addiction, you often go through the shame and the stigma of being an addict, getting looked at in a negative fashion. And what I hope to do here at the Recovery Support Center, and especially with my art wellness group, is to kind of break that stigma and bring a community together. The arts and music program, I believe that, I tell people all the time that there might be some skills and some activities that they are good at, but they're not honing those skills while they're in active addiction. They might be good at art, they might be good at music, they might be good at crafts. It's something I discovered when I entered recovery, that I was really good at art. So now today, I'm able to pass that along to others.
New Roots Recovery Support Center in Luzerne County, when we started thinking about the project and what we were going to do to create a hub of resources for people in recovery in our community, we really noticed how much the arts, painting and drawing and writing and music were a part of people's recovery plans. So we actively designed a program that would bring that right to our center. And it was amazing when we started reaching out that immediately people with talents stepped up to the plate and said, really, I'd like to do this. I'd like to come in and help with an art therapy class, or I would like to come in and play some music and things like that. And it really is a beneficial way to teach people how to relax, how to cope, and how to spend their time.
It's different in the fact that it's run by certified recovery specialists who have had substance use disorder. We know what you're going through. We know how it's been. We keep you busy. We can talk to you, help you with everything you need to get to make you part of life, part of your own future of what you wanted.
I myself am a person in long-term recovery. The end of '07 where I raised the white flag, and I've always been very much a lover and passionate about music. And I was fortunate, as I progressed in my recovery, that's not something that triggers me anymore.
When it comes to substance use disorder, being outside of yourself is one of the best ways to help cope. You can be outside of yourself and concentrate on other things. That way you're not constantly thinking and wishing and having your mind going back to your substances instead of going forward to where you need to be in life.
The art and the music, a lot of people, I spoke with a young lady. We were coming back from a meeting out in the back mountain, and she told me about how her 2-week stay in a local mental institution, the most impactful thing that she did, she didn't hear really any of the counseling, therapy, anything. It was the art class coming in. And it just was able to center her and just give her a little bit of ease.
One of the things we hear, especially in early recovery, is what do I do with all this time I have on my hands? I lived a lifestyle before that I was always going and running and doing these things that I shouldn't have been doing, and now I have time, and what am I going to do with this time? Really to develop people and to develop good coping skills and things that they enjoy, and maybe to explore some things that they've never explored in themselves before, and the art is definitely a great way to do that.
I have a direction that I would like to see it go in. I want to, make it recovery based, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the more basic pieces that I know how to do and, obviously show our members, but when you're done with it, it looks like a more advanced piece when you're finished with it.
We have our music meditation, which is very holistic for healing, for letting go of yourself, for being able to be out of yourself for a little while. We also have Healing Through Music with Rob, which is actually an amazing class. It's used with percussions to let out feelings, to let out your emotions. You end up all coming around in one group. And once again, you're outside of yourself, you're thinking about something else.
If the members don't want to take their artwork home and hang it up, we might be looking to hang it up here somewhere in the center so that people could view it and it could be a part of the center.
Recovery starts with a call. Call 1-800-662-HELP or visit battlingopioids.org.
Now joining us is Matthew Cappetti, certified recovery specialist from New Roots Recovery Center located in Luzerne County. Thank you, Matthew, for joining us. Just a few questions for you. First of all, I love the artwork behind you. Is that something you did or people from your center?
That's something I did, Paula, and thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you having me, certainly. That's something that I did in my spare time, but I try to, bring some of that to the center when I do the group, to try and kind of just teach people just a couple of the tricks of the trade, so to speak.
Well, it's wonderful artwork. I just wanted to ask, do you need to be a musician or an artist to participate in the program?
Absolutely not. My program, the group I run, the wellness group, it's the wet paint group, is open to anyone in the community. Our center, it's open to people in recovery, but we also like to let people know it's open to families who have been affected by, substance abuse.
And you find that music therapy and art therapy is helpful in a person's recovery?
I feel it is 100%. I mean, that was something that kind of allowed me to step out of myself in early recovery as well as long-term recovery. And I feel like, people need that escape. It's a healthy escape. It's a healthy release. It helps people to find that, I'm good at music. I'm good at artwork. I just, I haven't known about it because, obviously I've been actively, in active addiction. And when you're in early recovery, you're trying to rediscover yourself, and you're trying to find, things that you do enjoy aside from, the lifestyle that you've been living prior. So, I find a lot of people come down and are very receptive, to painting, to drawing, and learning new things, and they're doing it in a group environment together, and it's just this healthy activity that helps them to step outside of themselves and get that little escape throughout their day, throughout their week, and it's also very therapeutic in the way it's done.
And you'll also be adding creative writing to your program?
Yes, that was something that was discussed with one of our co-founders. I myself have always enjoyed writing just, as a hobby. And, I thought that maybe it would be, just a nice addition to the art group to be able to offer that to people. And so far the reception, just from, conversation I've had with a few of my own members about it, has been, very positive, and people are, excited about it when it does, come into play at the center.
Is it the act of using your hands, is that what helps people to change their lifestyle, change their thoughts, help them recover from addiction?
I think it's the creativity behind it and the release behind it. You don't necessarily have to be talking about your story and sharing past trauma to get that release. You could let it speak through your writing, through your art, through your music, and it at the end of the day, when I know myself, when I've drawn something or I've painted something and I'm looking at it during that whole process, I might have earphones in, I might be sitting there alongside someone working on a piece, and it's just kind of like it's a healthy release for me. It's therapeutic to myself, and it's a break from the everyday hustle and bustle of my day. And I like to think that it's a break for those who are coming to the Center for Services, to get outside of the the normal group or the normal therapeutic session or whatever they're working on outside of that time they're with us, to kind of just have that healthy release and be able to say, hey, I did this. Like, I could take this home, I could hang it on my wall. It's something I could look at. I had a member do a beautiful piece a few weeks ago that I myself said, like, I would have loved to have put that on my wall. Like, I was very impressed with it. So, and she was thrilled with it.
Something to be proud of.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. And when you're doing stuff like this, you're finding that, like, these natural, normal, everyday talents that you're good at, and something that you could kind of mold over time. Like, when I started at day one with drawing as opposed to where I was a year later are two different things. And I look back on that and just to see where I'm going with my own artwork and the progress I've made, like, that's what I hope that people find through my group, that these are activities that and talents that they've had that they just haven't been able to tap into.
Sure, it could be a whole new discovery. Matthew, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you elaborating on your artwork and the center's programs.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Back to our panelists now, Senator Yaw and Deputy Secretary Bereshansky. It's nice to see alternative programs that are out there to help people who've been through trauma and are going through substance abuse recovery. Are there any new or different alternatives that you'd like to share?
This is actually the first I'm hearing in regard to music and art therapy, but I will tell you that I will make Matthew the same offer that I made Stu. I hope I got his name right before. I would love to see him at our command center. I'd love to utilize his experiences to inform other state-level agencies about this out-of-the-box thinking. He made a great statement before about being in early recovery and having to utilize that moment to kind of find yourself again. He's totally correct, and I hear that from other people in early and long-term recovery. And so I would love to invite him to the command center and see what resources we can put behind that, because if he's making a difference, whatever it is that makes a difference, let's do it.
Sure.
Let's follow up on it.
Let's try it.
Right. That's what we're doing here, just trying to make a difference.
Yeah. We have our office has been contacted by programs similar to this, but this is the first time I've ever heard somebody really explain the background and success. And I agree. Any little thing that we can do out there, it's like putting together this rope, which I've talked about many times. If we can put one more strand of something positive to help, I'm really encouraged by some of the segments that we've seen today and what's going on that maybe we do have a bit of a grasp and hope in this whole crisis that Pennsylvania faces.
Even look at the first gentleman you had on, Stu. He uses his time to go out and deliver medication-assisted treatment on wheels. So,
he's actually helping other people directly every day.
Yeah.
Do you have goals for the new year to try to improve any programs or introduce anything?
Well, unfortunately, we have some bills that we want to continue with, addressing the PDMP issues with veterinarians and departments of health. We want to continue to look into those aspects, and I think that there's always going to be something there that the legislature can do to help, and I appreciate the support that the administration has given us.
And we appreciate all you're doing. Are you doing any more public hearings on this issue?
We're going to continue the public hearings. The one that I said about the PDMP, and I think that we're going to have a hearing on that just to start addressing the issue. One other one that came up, and this was raised by the Philadelphia Department of Health, is what happened. The question was asked is what happens to doctors that overprescribe?
What are the penalties?
What are the penalties?
Are there penalties?
Well, apparently not many. And is that something we should look into?
And who's overseeing, what is going on in pharmacies or doctors' offices? What's being dispensed? Who's policing them?
Those are all very good questions. Who is really? We're getting a lot of information, but what are we doing with it, and who's watching?
Secretary Baryshensky, in closing, what would you like to see improve, change within the state as we combat this crisis?
Well, obviously, I'd like to see our overdose death rate go down even further. Yes, we had an 18% drop, but we still have a lot of work to do. I'd like to see us strengthen our relationships with counties and with other stakeholders so that we can get even more people on board. I'd like for the command center to hear about some of the initiatives and other initiatives that are really delivering results across the Commonwealth on a more consistent basis, but also working hand in hand with the legislature to make sure that our goals are one and the same and we're getting things done, or that we continue to get things done.
Senator Yaw, in closing, do you have any final remarks?
My final remarks, I guess, would be to echo what I said before. I think that education is the key. I think that programs like this are absolutely invaluable, and the more people that we can touch who at least would pick up some piece of information out of this program, that's very, very beneficial. And thank you for doing this.
And thank you for all that you're doing in helping to combat the opioid crisis within Pennsylvania. I would like to thank Senator Yaw and Deputy Secretary Baryshensky for being a part of tonight's discussion focusing on current and new treatments in battling opioids. Our hope is that through our efforts, those in need of help will have access to information on where to get help and to save lives. On behalf of Pennsylvania Public Media, I'm Paula Giangiacomo. Thank you for watching.
Major funding for battling opioids has been provided by...
It doesn't take long to become addicted to opioids. 13 Pennsylvanians die from them every day. Geisinger is committed to ending opioid addiction with both prevention and treatment. In the last 3 years, we've reduced the amount of opioids we prescribe by 50%. And we've opened 4 medication-assisted treatment centers across the state to help patients recover from addiction. Learn more at geisinger.org/haveenough.
Additional support has been provided by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and viewers like you. Thank you.